Hey everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Title Scoop. So I was traveling this week quite a bit, so this is coming a little late, but just wanted to go over a little bit more of an extension from last week. So we talked about access last week and access by easement, and I had a couple people reach out and ask me if I could expand a little bit on what to look for when you're being asked to insure an easement. And so I want to just go over some of the steps that you should take when you've been asked to insure an easement on your policy. So the first thing you want to do is you need to search and examine the chain of title of the burdened property. You have to do that back to the time of when that easement was created, because one, we're trying to make sure that it's valid. And what that means, valid means that all the owners of record executed the instrument that created the easement. So whether that was the deed, whether it was an easement agreement, just whatever the document was that created the easement, everyone with an interest at that time did need to sign off. You're determining the outstanding interest, if any, could be superior as well to that easement. And what that means is if there was a mortgage filed prior to the easement, we need to make sure that that is listed as an exception on our policy, because that could affect and impact the ability to use the easement. The other thing is always make sure that the easement's not released or terminated. That could either be by a document or it could be by something like merger. And we talked about that a little last week, that, you know, if I own a property and there's an easement on the lot next to me and then I buy that lot next to me, there is a chance, depending on your jurisdiction, that the merger of the two properties then gets rid of the easement. So again, if you have questions about that, let us know, but just something to be aware of. So you're also, one of the next things you do is you really need to examine the document itself that creates the easement. You need to make sure not only that you have the right parties who signed off, but you need to make sure that it's effective in how it's explaining the easement, how it's really saying this is what we're doing, this is what the intent of the easement was, this is where it's located. It has to be pretty clear that this is exactly what it is. This is where the easement area is, what land is impacted by it. We don't want it really to be vague. We want it to be really pretty specific as to what it is, what it's doing, and where it's at. And then also check for whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive, because that could affect how we underwrite it. The next thing you're really going to do is you need to make sure you look at the real estate taxes, special assessments, any of those liens, like I said, that could have been filed at the date of the recording of the easement. So if they were filed prior to, they really need to be shown as exceptions unless they're released. That's because if you don't show them as an exception, especially like on a mortgage, that could cause a real big issue later on a foreclosure. The other thing is we often get asked to add that easement to our Schedule A, and you can do that. The biggest thing to know is you do need to show an exception for terms and conditions of that document that created the insured easements, and then also show an exception for the rights of others in that easement. And unless stated otherwise, an easement is presumed to be non-exclusive. So just something to be aware of. The other thing that sometimes does come up is when you're doing a commercial deal, especially, you may be asked to insure an easement and it's brand new. They're creating it as part of the transaction. And in that case, it's fine. You're going to do a similar search because you need to make sure that everybody with an interest is signing off. Most important, it would be something like a mortgage. If there's a mortgage out there, we want to make sure that mortgagee consents to the easement, because if there's a foreclosure, again, they could potentially get rid of that interest. And then the last thing I usually say is review the taxes and assessments to make sure there's no forfeiture. That would be important to note so that we can really look at it. Again, if you've got questions, let us know. We're happy to look at them with you, but that's something that does come up quite a bit, like I said, in commercial, not as often on residential. I do have some exception language. If you guys want it, let me know how to set out the easement, and then also if you're setting it out on the Schedule A, those exceptions to put. So if you guys want that, definitely let me know, reach out. I'm happy to send the language that I have. They're examples, you can modify them how you see fit. But anyway, let me know if you guys have more questions about easements or access, and with that, we'll call it a week. Thanks.